Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Digitally. It's becoming increasingly clear to all of us that AI model performance is advancing faster than any of us thought possible. The shift from language models to reasoning models earlier this year, end of last year, has already unlocked this concept of agentic AI. And we can see the first signs of a multi-agentic workforce. In fact, very recently, I was working with one of our peers, and the work she's doing is really amazing because they have multiple agents that are taking on a business process and components of a business process. They're actually interacting with each other, passing off things, coming back and having pieces of work redone as they work the workflow, so to say, across these personas. What was really intriguing for me, actually, and the best part was actually seeing the chat that was going on between these agents. And it's kind of the sort of thing where, they're joking back and forth. It's taking so long, but how come this was right or wrong? And then they're handing it back, and then someone's scooping something back. And I was reading this chat, kind of trying to see what was going on. And I could have sworn there was just a set of people working together. And it was quite amazing for me to see that. And obviously, it's early in its journey, but it is there. And many of us can see it happening much sooner than we would have otherwise thought. Okay, so really just to unpeel this thing, I wanted to bring in an expert that has been thinking about this and actually working on it well before this journey started, because this journey starts with data and getting data right. And I'm actually very happy to bring along Doug Laney, who'll be joining us today. Doug and I first met way back when he was at Gartner, and he ran their Chief Data Officer research work. He's actually the author of Informix. I actually got up this morning and I looked for my copy from the library on my wall, and I found it, and I was happy for that. And really, that work has kind of moved forward now, because data, as we know, is the foundation of AI. And as we start thinking about agentic AI, I thought, who might be a better person to bring in than Doug? And so, really, what we'll do now is bring Doug on board. He's a visiting professor at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. He's working very closely with data, tech, and AI leaders, and helping at companies across the world, and helping them think through how to sort of very pragmatically move into the world of agentic AI. Doug Laney, welcome.
Thanks, Sanjay. Great to be with you.
And I got to tell you, my book is not signed, so I'm going to have to send this back to you to Portugal, and you're going to have to sign it and send it back to me.
That means you actually bought it, so I'm very pleased. Yeah.
Okay, Doug, we're going to change gears. There is really so much about agentic AI we can discuss, but I want to take it step by step, and I want to pull back a little bit. First things first, what is agentic AI?
Yeah, so agentic AI, besides a buzzword lately, refers to AI systems that operate autonomously. And what they do is they pursue objectives with typically minimal human intervention. And unlike traditional AI, which primarily responds to predefined inputs and executes very narrow tasks, agentic AI tends to possess like a higher degree of self-governance, decision-making, adaptability. These are systems that can kind of interpret goals and break them down into subtasks and gather and analyze data, make informed decisions, even iterate, as we've seen with one of the more recent products that's all a buzz this week. And so they can evolve to different kinds of circumstances. So yeah,
I love that, because many of us, obviously, everyone in this episode will have experienced directly and personally kind of the power of large language models in the area of language, right? And for all of us that have done that, it's like, I'm going to be on a call with Doug Laney. Can you give me the 3 things he thinks about? And it starts like at the first word, and it keeps going till it finishes the last word. And there's no look back, there's no delete anything, there's no rewrite something, it's just out there. We call that a flat architecture. And the move from that language to reasoning, where instead of saying that, it sort of says, what are the steps we go through to kind of figure this out? What has Doug written? What are other people saying? Let's write a draft, let's check it with some people, then come back and rewrite it again. So it's more of a verticalized architecture. And I think, I'm just trying to correlate it to people that have already used large language models, how you can easily go from language models to a reasoning model, which is what's happening over here.
Right. But, so people are becoming comfortable. They're becoming comfortable with the query and response aspect of agentic AI, of LLMs, right? And then the next thing is, okay, what can we make it do for us, not just inform us or create content for us? So that's kind of that next level.
Yeah. And it's not just a set of processes automated. it's where you actually give agency to this model so it actually has independent thinking, ability to correct itself, ability to change, all that sort of stuff. Okay,
Absolutely. Yep.
so listen,
Yep.
we've established agentic AI, okay? And so when we can have one agent, we can have multiple agents. And so all of a sudden, we're now thinking about a multi-agentic workforce. But that's massive. What does that look like?
Yeah, so the concept of agentic workforce involves, like you say, multiple AI agents working collaboratively, much as like human teams do. Typically driving a particular business function and decision making. This could span a wide range of roles, from customer service bots that dynamically resolve issues to I don't know, financial analyst agents that optimize investment strategies, or supply chain agents that adjust logistics in real time, compliance agents that adhere to regulatory changes. So it's going to change. These kinds of workforces are coming, and we obviously need to prepare, and we'll talk about that. But they're going to fundamentally transform how businesses operate, shifting from human-led execution to AI-led orchestration, at least initially, and hopefully continuously to some degree, with some human oversight. And it's probably going to comprise a mix of specialized agents, each handling distinct tasks, and some generalist agents capable of integrating knowledge across domains, and then agents that manage the agents. So they're not just going to follow rules. I mean, I used to work in the rule expert systems world 30 years ago, and we would create rule-based systems. This is very different. They're going to learn, adapt, negotiate with one another to optimize outcomes, much like human teams balancing priorities and dependencies and risks and so forth.
I think you said, for this to come, and I'm going to ask you a hard question, but I'm going to ask you because I remember 10 or so years ago, when I first met you, I remember you saying something like, Sanjay, don't worry about AI, just get your data right. And you were so right back then, because, it's before you can get into AI, you have to get your data right.
Yeah.
And agentic AI, more than anything else, is going to require this embedded intelligence that it works off of. You said it's coming. Not to put you on the spot, but it's coming when? Like, is it 6 months, 12 months? Like, where do you see this?
I mean, it's an evolution. We're already seeing some of these kinds of
Indeed.
agents, especially in the world of customer service.
And financial services, yeah.
Financial analysis optimization strategies are probably already here. But really, what I'm kind of focused on is helping organizations think about what does this look like in a more holistic fashion, when agents on the financial side are also coordinating with agents on the customer service side and coordinating with agents on the sales and marketing side to create a more holistic, optimized experience for the organization, or what I call the self-driving organization. We've seen self-driving cars, and they integrate agents and AI and data and sensors and cloud. We're going to see this all come together at an enterprise level, where we have a self-driving organization that is agentic at its core.
Let me take that and maybe unpeel that into two different areas, Doug, with your help. I mean, I think the first area I want to focus on is, if you do have a multi-agentic workforce that is handling different components of a process or a decision strategy, they have to interact amongst each other. And someone's going to get it wrong. They're going to have to kind of get it right, fix it, back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's almost this context of, how do you get these interface points right? Like, is that where we guarded? Is that where we have contracts in place? And what does it take to kind of, I think I can get to one agent being able to do something. Help me understand how multiple agents will actually work with themselves in a manner that makes sense.
That's a great question. And maybe this is a little bit meta, but we're going to have agents that help us define the agentic workforce and how they're operating. So obviously we can conceive it ourselves, but I think ultimately we will be relying on certain kinds of agents or AI to help us define those roles, those interactions, those intersection points, those access points, contracts. So it's going to require role and task definition, inter-agent coordination, establishing protocols for AI agents to communicate and collaborate. How are we going to keep a human in the loop kind of supervision while these agents will operate autonomously? Human oversight is going to remain essential for certain kinds of ethical checks and strategic pivots, and probably some degree of compliance. Performance monitoring and feedback loops, and then various kinds of safeguards, as I mentioned. So we'll have to kind of bring all that together.
That's an amazing insight, right? I mean, and so much software development is now happening through generative AI, and I think what you're saying is the next version of that is we can actually ask agents to actually design how multiple agents work together, how the process gets broken down, who takes what part, what is the contract amongst themselves, what are the quality interfaces so we get it right. And that's not necessarily something we're going to have to build from scratch. So we can actually use agentic AI to even do that as well, right? That's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and why not, right?
Yeah. I have to say two things. Number one, this sounds like it's in the future, all of this coming together. And number two is that one lesson learned over the last 2 years is the future is much closer than you think it is. And so, future is getting redefined as we speak now. And so this is to happen very soon. How do people like me, how do CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, digital transformation experts, people that are kind of rolling up their sleeves and kind of working on things, right? What should we be thinking about? How do we design culture? How do we evolve the organization? How do we think about skills? Give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's going to require a fundamental shift in mindset from today, where a lot of people see AI as a tool for automation, to recognizing it as a core collaborator for decision making and operational efficiency, effectiveness, and variability and agility. So for you, establishing a vision, right, and getting leadership buy-in in a vision, championing this kind of transition, and framing it as a strategic advantage rather than something like, cost cutting or getting rid of employees. That's not how it's going to be sold at any level in the organization. And how AI is going to augment these human roles and redefine value creation, what value creation for a human means. You're also going to have to deal with trust and change management. Employees will need to trust AI-driven decisions. This is going to require a certain degree of transparency in how the AI operates. We're going to need a data-driven decision culture, which you probably are already developing there, Sanjay. Thriving on, as you mentioned earlier, high quality, accessible data, not just from inside the organization, but sensors and ability to gather external data is going to be very critical. And be able to curate that data autonomously is important. Experimentation and iteration, so anything you can do to encourage individuals to experiment with AI systems, again, establishing those guardrails, determining what the feedback and iteration looks like, the test and learn approach, and then finally, interdisciplinary collaboration. I think IT operations, legal, compliance, business leaders are all going to have to work together to ensure that your agentic AI vision and execution aligns with the company goals, again, while addressing the risks and ethical concerns and all of that. So it's a lot, for you to undertake, but a lot of it has to do with vision, change management, culture, experimentation, and determining how humans and AI are going to collaborate together.
I love that. I'm walking away, Doug, as I hear you speak, thinking I got to focus on three things very quickly. I need to start thinking about how do I think about agentic AI as an enabler of how business process gets done, as opposed to a bolt-on to an existing workflow. So you almost have to reimagine, and how do you drive culture in the company to make that happen? I also got this piece about data, and I think you're right in pointing out that data is the foundation, but actually I might add to that, it's data for the transaction, the business itself, but it's actually data about the business process, because there's a lot of tribal knowledge that we kind of put into play when we work with data that sits in business. And so how do you capture both aspects of it so you're able to replicate the business process in a way that makes sense and understand that domain? And then I think the third one, which you nailed, is this whole thing about governance and ethics and adoption and engagement and compliance. And, it's not the lipstick you can put at the end. Like, you've got to design the entire thing from the get-go. And those are words of wisdom and sage advice.
And the other thing I didn't really mention, going back to the whole concept of infonomics, the book that I wrote, is the economics of agentic AI. It's going to shift your business model. So you're going to have to look at adopting new kinds of business models for the business, and probably new economic models at a macro and micro level. And that's something that I've been exploring and I'll be writing about here in the coming months.
Doug, it's always fantastic to speak with you. I know you're going to be on LinkedIn with us on this, so thank you in advance for taking any questions. I appreciate you joining me. Thanks to our audience for being part of this, and we will talk more.
My pleasure.